I know someone who was tied on election night. I know someone who lost by 7 votes. I know someone who lost by 21 votes. I know someone who won by 26 votes.
So folks, if you're ever talking to people between now and election day and they say, my vote doesn't matter,
it matters.
It 100% matters.
It matters.
Today we are excited to have an active campaign manager with us who is working with our former Member of Parliament, Dan Muse, who is trying to keep his riding blue. This individual is a seasoned veteran when it comes to campaigns with over 20 years and 150 campaigns under his belt, and that's just what he's counted. He's here to give us a sneak peek behind the curtain of election campaigns, as well as help set the stage for the last remaining days leading up to April 28th, where we hopefully get a new Conservative government. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jordan Catz to Northern Perspective.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you to you and Tanya for all the incredible work that you've been doing to help educate people, talk to people about issues, about process, so that they can get more involved. Things like that are what actually builds democracy. The more people involved, the stronger our democracy is. So what you and Tanya are doing is absolutely critical. So
thank you for that. It's been our mission here at Northern Perspective since we started it, to educate people on politics, to get people more involved, and to allow people to have the tools that they need in order to hold their government to account, no matter what party it is. And you know, a lot of Canadians are nervous right now as to what's going on. I think most Canadians seem to understand this is probably one of, if not the most important elections in our recent history. But before we kind of talk about that, let's get into your history. So you've been doing this for 20 years, over 150 campaigns. How did you end up starting as a campaign, like getting involved in politics?
Well, there was an issue that was very near and dear to my heart, and I was actually encouraged by a community organization I was part of to reach out to the political party that I found myself in. They were telling everyone in our organization, it doesn't matter if you're a Liberal or a Conservative or an NDPer, become part of the party and then talk to people within the party about our issue. So my, obviously being a Conservative, I joined Team Blue. A year later, I was the first Conservative candidate in Windsor West federally. And what's absolutely blown me away about my political journey, and I know I've talked to you and Tanya about this as well, it's amazing in Canadian politics when you get involved and volunteer, the access that you get to people who actually form policy and make decisions. It's really a testament to how democracy ought to work, and it's just absolutely amazing.
Well, and this is one of the things that we use to encourage people to actually get out is, you know, it can be very lonely when you're sitting in your home and you're thinking about your values and you're thinking about how they may align with, you know, one of the parties. But it's very, very different when you get involved and you see there's so many people that actually have similar values, and you don't feel alone anymore, and you become part of this community. And in many cases, you make lifelong friends, which is interesting because I would say 2 months ago, it's hard to even think about how time flies, but Tony and I had never known who Jordan was before then. Yeah. And just in conversations, we became fast friends, and we're pretty much certain that, you know, 30 years from now, we'll be having conversations over a beer or something. So.
Well, exactly. Every time I work on a campaign, I make a friend. Every campaign I've ever worked on, I come away with more friends, which is what keeps me working on campaigns, quite frankly. It's certainly not the money.
Right. I can believe that. So so you started way back when you became a candidate, and at some point you either decided or were asked to manage your first campaign. What was that like?
Um, it was an interesting experience because it's a very, very different set of skills. There aren't a lot of people who you can say, listen, you have to go knock on 20,000 doors and talk to people and uh, really push out party policy and explain things, and then have those same people be able to go back in and then worry about the budgets and, you know, when do we have to order our literature so that it gets here on time so that we can deliver it to people. And those are very different skill sets, and I've been fortunate to find that I have both sets of them. And being a campaign manager gives me the opportunity to work with the candidates and really make sure that the teams have what they need to make sure that the volunteers have the tools they need to succeed. I talk to volunteers who've never worked on campaigns before, and the number one thing they say to me is, Jordan, I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I'm afraid I can't do this. And what I tell them without exception, I'm not going to let anyone do an activity that I don't think they can succeed at. Because it's my job to make sure that the campaign succeeds, that the candidate succeeds, which means all the volunteers succeed. So we, design our tasks so that you don't have to be a campaign expert. You know, when we talk about some of the stuff coming up with GOTV, you'll be amazed at really how simple it is. So we design all of the tasks around simplicity, and we also design a lot of the tasks around a 2 to 4 hour commitment of time. So this doesn't have to be your whole life. This isn't a case where you say, okay, I'm going to go volunteer for Jordan, and it turns into 75 hours out of your week. It's come for an afternoon, come for an evening. We'd love to have you every afternoon, every evening from morning to night, but we understand that's not reality. So getting just that additional, okay, here we are. I've got someone for, 2 or 3 hours. Yesterday we had some data entry work, and we got 6 volunteers, and they came in from about 1 to 5, and they got it all done. It would have taken me 2 weeks to do that.
Right. So that help, and we've talked about this before, if it saves you time and you don't have to worry about it, that is an immense amount of value that is adding to even your job.
Well, exactly. I can't do the sheer volume of work that exists on this campaign. I can't put up all the lawn signs. I can't put up all the literature. Without the volunteers, we don't have a campaign.
Right. So when it comes to a campaign, I think a lot of Canadians may not understand that there's a whole anatomy of a campaign,
Right.
and there's phases and there's stages and all of this stuff. Many people may just think, well, it's getting out, knocking on doors, and handing people pieces of paper. But there's a lot more to it than that, isn't there?
There's a ton more to it. And one of the things that we do when we talk to somebody, every time they give us an indication of how we want to vote, we record it. But we have a database. And so we track everyone who says they want to vote for us. We track everyone we find who says they don't want to vote for us. And we're at the phase of the campaign now where we're taking all of that data, and we want to make sure all of the people who've said that they want to support Dan, the Conservative Party of Canada, and our leader Pierre Poilievre, make sure that they either got out to vote in the advance polls, or failing that come Monday the 28th, we get them out to vote.
And for those wondering, Jordan had an acronym he mentioned earlier called GOTV. That's what that means: get out the vote, or get
Correct.
out to vote. And that is probably one of the most crucial phases of the campaign, isn't it?
Well, there are going to be races in this country that will be decided by 200 votes or less. And the winner of that race is going to be decided by who has the better GOTV, the better get out the vote plan. So there are a lot of tight races out there from everything that I've heard. And our efforts this week are going to determine who wins and who loses those races.
Now, the good news for Canadians is, I think in general, the Conservatives are generally regarded, and this is not just by the Conservatives are generally regarded as having a better ground game than the Liberals. Why do you think that is?
We created a culture starting 20 years ago under Doug Finley that was a data-driven approach. Everything that we did prior to that, people would put up a bunch of lawn signs, and then the next election we wouldn't know where those lawn signs were. We wouldn't be able to go talk to those people and ask them to take a sign again. So Doug instilled within the Conservative Party that data is critical, and that's been something that's been an absolute centerpiece of everything that we've done since then. It's hard work, but it pays off, and this is the week that it pays off.
100%. So we have, as you mentioned, a tight race. We have the polls being what they are. A lot of Canadians don't necessarily believe the polls. I think a lot of that has to do with just the sheer disaster that this government has been over the last 10 years. Even with these polls that are operating, they seem to be significantly tightened. Even Mr. Graves has tightened his ECOS poll from a 20-point lead down to a 3-point lead. So now the parties don't necessarily watch those polls. There's a lot of internal polling that goes on as well, correct?
Oh, absolutely. The parties spend significant amounts of money doing a level of polling that every pollster wishes they had access to that data. We also have thousands and thousands of data points because we record everyone we talk to. We're able to say, oh, in the last election when we went to this area, we got X percentage of the vote. Now, based on our door knocking, this is where we think we are. So we're able to do some comparative analysis based on that. But we have an idea where everything is. But the best way to change the polling numbers is to make sure our side gets out and votes.
Right, 100%. So was your campaign from the other teams that you may talk to? Are they encouraged by the record number of Canadians that came out on day one of the advanced polls?
Oh, absolutely. Like we are seeing a level of turnout unheard of in Canadian politics. We'll see what the final numbers are when I get back to the office today, because yesterday was the last day, so we're still analyzing those numbers. But we think there might be overall a 10 to 15% increase in advanced poll turnout this election from the last election.
Which is amazing, because I think the Flamborough-Glanbrook riding was around 65-ish% last time. So that means if that tracks to the end of the election, we're at around an 80% turnout for that, which is phenomenal.
Yes, that would be levels unheard of in modern politics.
Right. And when we've been doing our historical deep dive, and in previous elections, we used to see high 70s turnout in terms of percentage of Canadians across the nation when they came out to vote. And the ironic part is as more information becomes available through technology and social media, that number has continued to dwindle, which is interesting. So, but I think there was a bit of a bump in the recent elections. But I think this is a result of Canadians being distracted by all of these new distractions that are being thrown their way. They're less concerned about politics. They don't pay attention to the news a lot more, but that has changed significantly in the last couple of years, I think, to Canada's benefit. And I think we're we're hopefully going to be seeing that across the board as it relates to this turnout. And if we can get 80% of Canadians turning out across the nation, that's going to be about 15% of Canadians that aren't going to be taken into account in these polls, because they're basing their numbers off the last election, aren't they?
Correct. And let me say this: those people aren't going to get themselves to the polls. We need help to do that. So, just some stats. On Friday, for the first day of the advanced polls, we had 15,000 households that had identified themselves as wanting to vote for us. We delivered a literature piece on Wednesday and Thursday of last week to virtually every single one of them. Virtually every single one of them got a piece reminding them about the advanced polls, telling them where the advanced polls were, what hours they were open on, reminding them to have ID, so that anyone who wanted to vote, if they had any questions, we tried to answer as many of those questions as we could so that they could successfully vote. Coming into Monday, it's going to be a supercharged effort that's very similar.
Yeah. Because advanced polls are closed. They're done.
Yeah.
And I think today is the last day you can use a special ballot to vote before the election.
Special ballots, and today, the 22nd at 6 p.m.
Right. Otherwise, it's Monday the 28th.
Otherwise, it's Monday the 28th.
And you're fighting with every other million of Canadians across the country. So that's going to be interesting. So let's dig into that. So we're at Tuesday. We're now 6 days until Election Day.
Correct.
What can we expect?
Well, I'll tell you what we're looking for. That might be a better place to start. And I'll break it into kind of two sections. The first section is Monday, Election Day, and we'll leave that aside for now. Leading up to Monday, I imagine we are going to have somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 households that have not voted yet out of the 15,000 that we have. Maybe a little bit less, I would hope, but we'll see what the numbers are when we crunch them today. Each of those households are going to be voting at a very specific voting location. So later this week, and this will be the same for, or similar for, virtually every Conservative campaign across the country. The timing of the events might be different for various campaigns, but every campaign in the country is going to have a literature piece where they essentially put a sticker on telling people where to vote. So it's a generic piece that gives the hours, but then it says your voting location is, and we take off a label, put it there, and that's individualized for each household. It takes a lot of people to put thousands of stickers on. It's not complex. You can go by the campaign office. They have systems in place. They'll organize it. But you're putting stickers on. It's easy to do. It's fun. It tends to be very sociable because there's usually a crowd of 5 or 6 people who, and you mentioned this earlier, they all have similar values as you. Most campaigns will have food and drinks, and they'll take care of you. It's a really easy thing to do. Once we have all of those labels done, our campaign on Saturday and Sunday has to deliver them to everybody. So you'll be given routes anywhere from probably 50 to 150 households, depending on the area, depending on how many volunteers, etc. And in most cases, you're going up and you're putting a door hanger on a door. That's it.
Yeah.
If you can find the address and you can get out of your car and walk up a few steps, that's a task you can do.
And it's a rewarding task too, because I've done this with a couple of different ridings in this campaign, and it's rewarding because you're checking off these houses as you're going along. Yeah. And in some cases you get to talk to these people, and they're friendly people too. So.
Well, that's just it. So there's 2 things that you touched upon that are really critical. Number one, this is the work that matters. Every person you're talking to is a real vote. It's not a potential vote. This is a real vote that's going to help us to win. And number two, any people you come across are almost universally grateful that you're out there, you're working, they appreciate it. You have tons of great conversations. The GOTV work is always the most rewarding work of the campaign because you're almost never talking to people who are mad at us.
Yes. Yes. Or scared of it.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
So, and then those are all delivered. Everyone crosses their fingers on Sunday night, and then election day opens.
Election day opens, and on election day, there's kind of two paths you can take. But before that, I'll give you just a couple of interesting general stats about election day. 25% of the people who vote on election day vote before 1 p.m.
That's fascinating.
So those are people who get up, they go there first thing in the morning.
Get it done.
15% of the people vote between 1 and 5. So if you, by the way, if you know people who want to vote and they want to avoid the line, send them in the afternoon. That historically has the shortest lines you're ever going to see. And then after 5 p.m., it's 60% of the people.
All bets are off, and that's the last 3 hours, basically.
Exactly. So there's two paths. The first path, let's call it working outside of the polls. So you'll be given a list of people who have indicated that they're going to vote conservative, and you're going to go to their house and you're going to knock on their door and say, "Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm here on behalf of Dan Muse and the Conservative Party of Canada, and we just wanted to let you know that voting's going on today, and you have until, in Ontario, it's 9:30 at night. Depending on what province you're in, it could be different. You have until this time to get out and vote. Do you need a ride? Do you need any help? Anything like that." So that's kind of the first path. You just go to your list and away you go. The second path will actually have people inside the polling stations. And there are two jobs there. The first job is to make sure that things are running smoothly. What I can report to people, for the most part in Canada, we don't have problems at polling stations. So this is something that's important, but we're not in most cases out there to try and catch fraud. There is not a lot of it.
Right.
We're looking to make sure that there aren't poll workers trying to influence the vote. Doesn't happen very often. We're looking to make sure that people don't leave partisan paraphernalia behind the voting screens. So no literature for the other candidates, nothing like that, no pins, no buttons, no...
Nothing that could be used to influence voting.
Exactly. Once that's done, you're in data collection mode. So Elections Canada uses what's called a sequence number for every person. And it's essentially a poll number followed by typically a number between 1 and 500 for each voter who's in there. We have a system for entering that sequence number of people who voted into our database. Why is this important? Come 5 o'clock, when 60% of the people who are voted, we have a back end of professional phone banks. These phone banks are literally making tens of thousands of calls an hour. They, on an hourly basis, get a list of people who voted, and they take those people off of their phone, off of the list that they call. So if we can capture all or most of those 40% of the people who vote between 5 p.m., get it loaded up into the database, when we get into those last critical few hours, when we're trying to get that 60% of the vote out, we just made the phone bank 40% more effective. It's a massively important number. So it's technology. The campaigns will teach you how to do it. I can teach someone how to do it successfully in about 5 minutes. If you have an iPhone or a tablet, you can do it. So there's collecting all of that data with inside the polling stations, very important, so that when the phone banks are going, we're only calling people who haven't voted yet.
And again, folks, this is to try and capture those last remaining voters in those last remaining hours, because as you said, if races are coming down to a couple of hundred votes, those few hours could be absolutely critical in moving the needle enough to actually win that riding.
Oh, 100%. And I can tell you in my political career, here are some of the closest races that I've either been involved with or know people involved with. I know someone who was tied on election night.
Wow.
Lost by 3 votes in a judicial recount. I know someone who lost by 7 votes. I know someone who lost by 21 votes. I know someone who won by 26 votes.
So, folks, if you're ever talking to people between now and election day and they say, my vote doesn't matter,
it matters.
It 100% matters.
It matters, right? And when you lose or win by that close,
oh, it guts you.
Yeah. You put everything under a microscope. So anything we can do to get those extra couple of votes out, anything we can do is absolutely critical. The GOTV, as I said earlier, is the difference between winning by 200 votes and losing by 200 votes in a whole bunch of these ridings. And depending on how close the vote is, it's going to be the difference between who the government is.
Right. And the thing to take into account, folks, is this is what's going on in virtually every riding across the country. Mm-hmm. This isn't unique to Jordan's riding. A lot of Conservative campaigns are managed very similar ways. There's kind of variations on things, but this is the general anatomy of how campaigns are run.
Everyone has their own little twist. Every riding has their peculiarities. And all of the things are customized to meet the best needs of the riding. There might be some ridings where they don't start stickering until Saturday and then they deliver everything on Sunday. There might be some ridings that are so large, like you take some of the northern ridings in northern Ontario.
Yeah, there's just vast distances.
There's vast distances. They're doing the same thing, but they have to organize it completely differently. But all of the local campaign managers have a plan that they've been working on for months for this week. And the volunteers are the firepower to make it happen. The plan doesn't happen without volunteers.
Well, and as we've been reminding Canadians on election day itself, each riding needs around 200 volunteers to make that go successfully, and that's just per riding, per party. So the Conservative Party across the country needs, on average, at least around 64,000 people across the country. That's a lot of people. That's a city, is what they need.
That's precisely it. And again, while I'd love to have everybody for the full 12 hours plus the count, if you can come in for a few hours, that means there's less work that somebody else has to do.
Right.
We're literally talking about tens of thousands of people in our riding that we have to get out and vote on Monday. Any help we can get is just a huge relief to us. It takes so much pressure off of us to perform without volunteers.
100%. So, folks, can't stress it enough that whatever riding you're in, whatever region of the country you're in, they need your help on election day. So reach out to the EDA. If you haven't heard back from your EDA and you've reached out to them, That's actually a really good question. Maybe I'll throw it your way, Jordan. We've had many people that have great success where they contact us and they say, I've reached out to my EDA, I'm door knocking, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Some have told us I've reached out to my EDA and I haven't heard back despite multiple attempts. What would you suggest to those people that want to volunteer but they haven't heard back?
I'll be direct. Go to the EDA next door. They need help too.
There you go. And that's what we've recommended as well. So glad our answer has been correct this whole time. So everyone needs help, and do not let this election just go to chance. As we've said, you want to be sitting on April 29th, and you personally, you watching this, looking back on this election campaign and being able to say to yourself, I did everything within my power to try to force a change of government in this country. And if we do that, I think we have a decent shot.
Oh, absolutely. And for all of you people who want to prove the polls wrong, GOTV is how you do it.
Get out the vote, folks. And that means getting your neighbor, getting your family, getting your acquaintances, getting that guy down the street that you only talk to maybe once every 6 months. Means get out to vote. Jordan, thank you very much for joining us here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And good luck in the election.
Thank you.